Maryland quarterback Taulia Tagovailoa says that an SEC school offered him $1.5 million to transfer. Who was it? I've got a pretty good idea. We'll find out. Lockdown Big Ten starts now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Lockdown Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Thank you for checking us out, making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and we're available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And we're part of the Lockdown Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, a seven-figure temptation. Who did it? We'll find out. Plus, Tuesday tweets at the end of the show. They're from you. They're really good. Thank you very much. Be sure to subscribe and follow Lockdown Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcasts. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Audrey Snyder wrote a piece in The Athletic that talked about the supply and demand of college quarterbacks involved in the transfer portal. It is a big thing. It's really probably the most popular part of the transfer portal. She says Maryland quarterback Taulia Tagovailoa stated during last week's Big Ten Media Day to her that an unnamed SEC school offered him $1.5 million to transfer and come to play for them. We'll have more on that in a second. First of all, let's set the table for the quarterback market in the transfer portal. It's interesting to me and perhaps to you for two reasons. There's the supply side and the demand side. We'll start with the supply side. There's a trend where the minute any quarterback sniffs out the possibility that he might get beat out as the starting quarterback, he's bolting. It's happening all across the country. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And they're looking for a soft landing somewhere else where they can have the starting job handed to them. And that way they'll get the NFL to notice them because they're a starting quarterback and they'll get drafted. That's the plan anyway. Nobody feels like they can sit on the bench and hide and be hidden from public view, and they don't feel like they can get discovered. And what bothers me the most about it is they don't want to sit and fight and try and earn a starting job like the good old days. You can go back in time and look at Michigan, even when Tom Brady was there. Do you know that when Tom Brady arrived at Michigan, do you know what he was on the depth chart? He went first or second or third. He was seventh on the depth chart. He had six other quarterbacks ahead of him that he had to compete against in order to play at Michigan. Seventh. He was a backup behind Brian Griese for 2 years. And by the way, when he did get in, his first pass as a Michigan Wolverine was a pick six the other way against UCLA. What a great start for Tom Brady. Could have easily transferred out if the same rules from today applied back then. Would he have transferred? Probably would have. I don't know that. I don't know if he would have stayed, but it would be very tempting to go ahead and move on. Nevertheless, he stayed. He got his chance his junior year, and he won 10 of his final 11 games, and things were looking good. But Michigan keeps recruiting, right? Drew Henson comes in. Local kid, a lot of hype. They want to give him a chance. And so Tom Brady, his senior year, after having earned his spot his junior year, had to split time with a young kid, Drew Henson. Again, would somebody have wanted to transfer out of that situation in today's game? Yeah. Somebody, one of the two would have, probably. Don't want to split time. Want to be the guy. So that's just a little scenario to kind of paint the picture. As we talked about the supply side, now let's talk about the demand side to all of this, because this is where the coaches come in. Coaches, a lot of times, coaches are desperate. They're desperate to win and keep their jobs. And we all know you can't win without a good quarterback. And really desperate coaches don't have the luxury of developing a young quarterback and going out and recruiting somebody, because you end up developing them for the next guy, the next coach that's going to be coming in. So they scour the transfer portal looking for somebody with some experience and strength and a little more mature than a 17, 18-year-old coming out of high school. Somebody maybe is a junior or maybe a grad transfer, has played 4 years, has another year of eligibility, got a lot of experience, looking for a fresh start somewhere else. Good scenario. There's a lot of scenarios like that around college football. And, looking for somebody that's a good fit, both for the quarterback and for the coach. So there's two things driving all this demand: supply and demand, both sides of the equation on this transfer portal with all these quarterbacks that are just moving out all over the place. Now, let's go back to Taulia Tagovailoa for just a moment. We all know his story, right? And we all know his brother Tua preceded him, arriving on the scene at Alabama, was backing up Jalen Hurts, came in the second half of a national championship game, came in and saved the day. Boom, national championship. Ends up getting the job. And oh, by the way, Jalen Hurts then moves on, goes to Oklahoma. I think improved his passing ability quite a bit at Oklahoma. And now look at him playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. But that's Jalen. Let's stick with Tua here. And now he's quarterback with the Miami Dolphins. So everything worked out for Tua. But Taulia, he actually started out following his brother at Alabama. There were two Tagovailoas on the Alabama football team. But Taulia, the younger one, ends up transferring out. Says it's not happening. I'm not my brother here at Alabama. And Nick Saban had some other quarterbacks, and we'll talk about them in just a moment because they had a lot. Not anymore, I don't think. But he decides to go to Maryland and did pretty well. 2 years ago, had a really good year. Last year, kind of stepped back statistically, had a knee injury as well. But he didn't name the school, the SEC school that offered him the $1.5 million to transfer. That's to his credit. But he pointed out that, his legacy at Maryland and what he had been starting to build was more important to him than $1.5 million. Getting ready for his fourth season there. He's comfortable. He knows the system, knows the players, got some other mature players with him. And I think he's going to put up some lofty numbers this year. And in fact, they have some pretty lofty expectations at Maryland this year. I think they're going to surprise some people and do pretty well. Plus, he's happy. And, money can't buy everything. He's good to go. He's secure. However, he did say that if it wasn't for the stability of his family, he's got a good family, and the fact that his brother was already an NFL quarterback, maybe he would have made a different choice. Maybe he would have been tempted by $1.5 million. Because the flip side of that is I don't think he's making $1.5 million in NIL money. And it would have been tempting, he said. You can imagine maybe another kid with different circumstances. Sure. Maybe another kid that grew up with nothing. $1.5 million, boom, gone. It all depends on your personal situation. And again, we don't know about this $1.5 million, this alleged offer, if it was, hey, we can get you some name, image, and likeness deals and sponsorships totaling $1.5 million, or are we going down that slippery slope of, play for pay, which we don't want to have in college football, but unfortunately it's happening. So I'm super curious as to who offered him the money. I think you are too. And I've got a pretty good idea of who I think it is. We're going to run it down. We're going to do a little exercise here. We're going to run down the coach and quarterback combinations of each of the teams of the SEC and whether they would be likely or even have a situation where it was necessary that they would need to make such a desperate move. And I think I've got it nailed down to about 2 or 3 with one team that I'm going to put in a category of likely to have made this offer without any proof or anybody saying anything. I'm going to be curious to hear what you think. By the way, hit me up on Twitter at all times at Talk Big Ten. And you can also make comments if you're watching on YouTube. Oh, and one other note. I'm going to take a moment right here. I want to thank everybody who has subscribed to this channel since I took over. It was an existing channel. I took over in June. And we had a little over 1,000 subscribers. We are getting real close to 2,000 in just a month and a half. So I'm really asking you to make the push. Click the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It's as simple as a click, and you'll be good to go. I'll be good to go, and I'll be very appreciative. Let's make that push to 2,000 before we get too much further here in August, and then maybe we can really set some records once we get going in the football season. But we're going to take a look and an educated guess regarding who may have made that $1.5 million offer to Taulia as we continue right here on Locked On Big Ten. For a championship team, you got to have a quarterback. I think we made that case pretty clear in the past couple of minutes. And it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, whether it be quarterback or anybody else in the transfer portal. It's the same thing when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part that you need fits right, and it fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. And after all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed, just like the right players on a football team. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. So Maryland quarterback Taulia Tagovailoa says he was offered $1.5 million to transfer to an SEC school. Well, let's do a little work here. I got them all lined up. We're going to look at these teams, coaches, and quarterbacks, and we're going to find out who it was. But first, a quick quiz to put everything into perspective for you, okay? Do you know how many quarterbacks entered the transfer portal this past year? We're talking about the 2022-23 transfer cycle. 123 FBS scholarship quarterbacks left the schools that they were at. 123. Did you know there are only 133 football bowl division schools? So 133, basically Division I college football schools out there. 123 scholarship quarterbacks moved on. That's almost one per team. There are 67 quarterbacks that bolted from Power 5 schools. Do you know how many Power 5 schools there are? There's 65. We had 67 Power 5 quarterbacks leave. Virtually one quarterback for every major school decided to hit it. Now, there's several quarterbacks on a roster. It's not always the starter, but frankly, it frequently is not. But that's a staggering ratio. Absolutely staggering. All right. So now that as your perspective here, let's get back to Taulia and the $1.5 million and who offered. Again, we're going to presume this alleged offer came this year, and we're going to look at the SEC quarterback and coaching situations. Let's start off with Auburn. You got Hugh Freeze trying to change things up there at Auburn. Now, they got Peyton Thorne from Michigan State, so they already have a transfer quarterback. And you Big Ten fans know this, particularly up in Michigan. The Michigan State fans hate the little brother reference to Michigan. Same thing happens at Alabama and Auburn. Auburn hates being the quote-unquote little brother to Alabama. You think they're going to go try and get the little brother of the quarterback that once led Alabama to a national championship to be their next guy? Not happening. I'm going to cross Auburn off the list. All right. How about Arkansas? Sam Pittman, head coach. He's got KJ Jefferson. He is preseason all SEC. They're not changing that. They are ready to go at quarterback at Arkansas. Threw 24 touchdowns and 5 interceptions last year. Ready for even a bigger year this year. How about LSU? Brian Kelly. Second year there. He's got Jaden Daniels. That's the team MVP right there. They won the Western Division title. He's got 43 career starts. They're not messing with that. They don't need another quarterback. So cross LSU off the list. How about Mississippi? Lane Kiffin says all these NIL deals is basically legalized cheating throughout college football. That would look weird if it got out that he offered $1.5 million for another quarterback to come in. Besides, he's got Jackson Dart. Do you know that Jackson Dart and Jaden Daniels are the only SEC quarterbacks to throw for 2,900 yards and rush for 600 yards? I know. I'm mentioning Jackson Dart and Jane Daniels in the same breath. So anyway, I think they're fine at Mississippi. They wouldn't be the school to do this. Mississippi State. Zach Arnett taking over there. I mean, they're still remembering Mike Leach. They got Will Rogers, who was preseason All-SEC third team. Do you know that Will Rogers completed over 500 passes last year and, in fact, has completed over 1,000 passes in his career? That's an SEC record. They're pretty good at quarterback. I don't think they would make a move like this. Who else would do this? Next on my list, Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher. Now, this one's interesting. They got Connor Wegman. He's young, sophomore, lots of upside, lots of hype around his recruiting. But Jimbo's a little desperate. Jimbo's hot seat getting warm, however you want to look at it. He has under-delivered on that massive contract that he signed a few years ago. And they've got an NIL collective that's second to none in college football. They got all these boosters just throwing money together. So, I mean, wasn't it Nick Saban that once said Jimbo Fisher has the best team money can buy? Let's put them on the list, although I don't think they're the final candidate here. Florida, Billy Napier. They got Graham Mertz from Wisconsin, who's started there for 2.5 years. Got to find a replacement and have him be a replacement for Anthony Richardson, who's moved on to the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know. Maybe. Let's put that as a maybe. Maybe a top 3 as to who offered Taulia this kind of money. Next on my list, the Georgia Bulldogs, back-to-back national champions, Kirby Smart. The quarterback that won them the national champions, Stetson Bennett, the championships, is gone. But they got Carson Beck. I think they're excited about it. They're ready to go. I can't see Kirby Smart making a move like that, offering Taulia $1.5 million to come. Kentucky, Mark Stoops. He has to find a replacement for Will Levis, who is now in the NFL. He has Devin Leary, who was a 4-year starter at North Carolina State. Got a lot of experience. He's 17-9. He's thrown for almost 7,000 yards. I think they're fine there at quarterback. Not desperate enough to make a move like that and go offer somebody else $1.5 million to come in. By the way, offering a player from another school $1.5 million to come transfer in, that's more of a Kentucky basketball move than a Kentucky football move. There, I said it. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Yeah, that's more of a Kentucky basketball move. I don't think Mark Stoops is doing that. Missouri, Elijah Drinkwitz. He's got Brady Cook, 20 touchdowns, 11 interceptions last year, 2,700 yards throwing, almost 600 yards rushing, dual threat. Doesn't seem like a Missouri move, does it? How about the South Carolina Gamecocks and Shane Beamer? Nope. There was not a hotter quarterback at the end of the year last year than Spencer Rattler. He's coming back. They're good to go. They're not touching that. Tennessee, Josh Heupel. Hendon Hooker's gone. But they got Joe Milton III, the transfer from Michigan. He's got some experience. He was the MVP from the Orange Bowl last year. I think they're set at quarterback. Plus, look, Tennessee just had the hammer laid down on them from the NCAA from years ago, from having cash and in bags and giving it to people. And they just, no. How would that look if you go offer a quarterback somewhere else $1.5 million? Forget that. I don't think they did it. Vanderbilt, they have A.J. Swan at quarterback, who I don't know how impressive he's going to be, but this doesn't seem like a Vanderbilt move, does it? They're too much of an academic school to be messing with that. I don't think so. Although, didn't they have like 8 votes from the media to win the SEC this year? I don't know where that came from. And then finally on my list, Alabama and football coach Nick Saban. Now, Nick has had a luxury of a nice pipeline of quarterbacks. He's had Tua and Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones and Bryce Young, all very good. So he's got 5 guys on his depth chart now. He goes into the spring game in April. They play. He's not happy. He comes out. He's like, he's pulling his hair out. We got to find a quarterback by July. Does that mean literally, or does that mean among his current roster? Because right now they got Jalen Milroe out of Katy, Texas, Tyler Buckner, Ty Simpson, Dylan Lonergan, and Eli Holstein is 5th on the depth chart right now. Again, we got to find a quarterback between now and July. I think it was Nick Saban. Well, maybe not specifically Nick Saban. I think it was Alabama. They're familiar with Taulia. They know the family. They know what he can do. They know what his brother did. I think, just my opinion, there's nobody that said anything. There's no proof. But I'm here to give you an opinion. My opinion is it was Alabama that tried to get him to leave Maryland. If I'm going to put a couple other chips to hedge it, I would say Jimbo and A&M. But I think it was Alabama. What do you think? Hit me up on Talk Big Ten on Twitter. Love to hear from you. And also comments here on YouTube. And again, let's keep the push going to get us over 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. You everydayers. Our next show, we'll take a look at who won the transfer portal this offseason in the Big Ten. Some interesting thoughts on that. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. And coming up, our weekly feature, and this comes from you guys. It is Tuesday Tweets. Some things I found amusing. We pulled them together. We will share them as we continue on Locked On Big Ten. All right, let's check this out here. I'm going to put a couple of these up on the screen. And for those of you listening to audio, I'll explain them all. This comes from Blue by 90. And it says the number 1 player in Ohio visiting Ann Arbor all weekend. Yes, this was this past weekend. 5-star Dorian Brew. And he was at the barbecue at the Big House all weekend long. And Michigan fans are pretty excited. They think he's going to announce that he's going there. Next, we've got the block spot from Sam Block. Listed college football rivalry since 2004. And some of these are quite lopsided. At the top, he's got Ohio State, Michigan since 2004. Ohio State 15-3 against Michigan. Navy 14-5 versus Army. Washington beating Wazoo 12-6 since 2004. Oklahoma and Texas, the Red River. Oklahoma leading that series 12-8 since 2004. Alabama and Auburn a little more close, as is Mississippi State and Ole Miss. And ask what is the best rivalry game, and you know the answer to that. That is still Ohio State and Michigan. Here we go from PFF College. College football, more fun when Nebraska is good. A picture of Matt Rule from Big Ten Media Day, talking about there was a time when Nebraska football was feared. We want to get back to that. Also went on to say, you got to take that. Nobody's going to give it to you. And I think Matt Rule is fired up and ready to go in the Big Ten. Speaking of Big Ten Network is getting ready to go on its tour. Its camp tour schedule. All the teams in the Big Ten going to spend a day with them and to do an hour-long show. They started out August 4th at Nebraska. Speaking of Matt Rule, August 6th at Minnesota, Northwestern August 7th, and Penn State on the 8th. They go to Rutgers on the 9th, Maryland the 10th, and Ohio State on the 11th. Then they go to Bloomington, Indiana on August 12th to see the Hoosiers. Up to Ann Arbor on the 14th to see Michigan, the 15th, Michigan State. Then back down to West Lafayette on the 16th to see Purdue. They will be with the Fighting Illini on the 17th, Iowa the 18th, and they close out their tour on the 19th at Wisconsin. Thank you for that tweet with that schedule. Here is Andre at Andre Tibbett. He actually retweeted one from Jim Weber, who put up 4 helmets on here. And what's the best helmet of the Big Ten? Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, or Iowa? I think there are 10 other fan bases going, where is our team on this list? That Michigan helmet does pop. So is the Hawkeyes on this one, and this particular one. Looks good. Meanwhile, college football nerds, should we think about getting rid of the conference championship games in a 12-team playoff era? Yes and no. I talked about this at length yesterday. Look, you're going to get in a situation with playoff expansion. You're going to have, for example, Michigan and Ohio State. They're going to play at the end of November. Then likely there are going to be many years where they turn around and play again in the Big Ten championship because the Big Ten's getting rid of divisions. And then chances are, if they're both playing for a championship, they're both going to be ranked in the top 10. They're both going to end up in the college football playoff and playing each other a third time. Something's got to give. They got to get rid of something. Whether they get rid of them or not, they're going to be diminished. That's a fact. And at Barstool, Big Ten, most wins by Big Ten football programs in the last 5 years. Ohio State with a sizable lead over Michigan, 55-46. Would you be surprised if I told you Iowa was number 3 with 43 wins in the last 5 years? Especially how they've struggled offensively the last 2 years. Yeah, I'm a little surprised. Ahead of Penn State with 42. Minnesota up there too. Row the boat to 39. And Wisconsin at 38. There's the rest of the list. Rutgers at the bottom with just 15 wins. And then finally, Kyle Umlang tweeting out, there will only be 3 power conferences in 2024. And he's got all the logos around there, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC. And you know what? He's probably right. I think that's where we're headed. Maybe 4 conferences. I don't know what the Pac-12 is going to do. I think it's going to be a bad situation for them. Nevertheless, that's it for Tuesday Tweets. Good situation for us. Thank you for checking us out on Lockdown Big Ten and making us your first listen every day. You everydayers, our next show, we'll take a look at who won the transfer portal in the Big Ten. Who did the best job? Looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have all that. Many ways to interact with me, of course, on Twitter at Talk Big Ten. And then be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast right now. I'm trying to get those subscriptions up over 2,000. They're getting close, like 1.85, 1.9. We inherited about 1,000 when we started this a month and a half ago. It's just been going through the roof. Thank you if you've already done so. But please subscribe. Making a big push for that so you can get the latest episode of Lockdown Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Now I want to invite you to check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast for the latest on everything going on in sports. In the meantime, have a great day. Thank you again for checking us out. We'll talk to you next time. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.